Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Brief and Debrief Podcast. This is where we break it down so we can build it back better. I'm your host, Edward E.J. Wood, and after 15 years of developing leaders in the military, I've discovered something powerful about leadership that most people get backwards. Everyone wants to jump straight into leading others, but here's the truth that I've learned. Your ability to lead others is directly proportional to your ability to lead yourself. And today, we're going to break down exactly why that matters. What you're about to learn isn't about theory. It's not another leadership philosophy that sounds good but falls apart under pressure. This is tested framework that works when everything else breaks down. The structure that you can expect from this podcast is we'll start with our mission brief. And our mission brief is going to contain a mission objective, which is the overall goal of what we want to accomplish today. And then we're going to break it down into tactical objectives, or smaller steps that, if successful, lead to the overall success of our mission objective. So let's jump into it. Our mission objective for today is going to be transform your reactive leadership patterns into intentional decisions using the break, build, better, or as I like to call it, B3 framework in the next 24 hours. For our tactical objectives, write down one moment your leadership defaulted to reaction instead of intention. This is going to be our breaking point, so it's extremely important that you're very specific about when, where, and why. Our second tactical objective, identify the clear, decisive action you should have taken in that moment. This is going to be our building block. So what would intentional leadership have looked like in that moment? Our third objective, execute one intentional decision in tomorrow's most challenging moment. This is going to be our better. It's proof that we can choose intention over reaction. Let me paint a picture for you that a lot of us might be pretty familiar with. Imagine a leader that has all the skills, they've got all the knowledge, they've even got the respect of their team. On the surface, everything looks solid. But under pressure, something interesting happens. Their decisions start coming from reaction instead of intention. Their clarity gets clouded by urgency. Their confidence gets replaced by hesitation. One reactive decision leads to another, and suddenly their entire system starts to crack. This is a pattern I've seen on repeat countless times, both in high pressure situations through operations in the military and in regular civilian leadership. But what's fascinating about this is the solution isn't what most people think. It's not about adding more skills. It's not about adding more knowledge. It's about something much more fundamental. It's about breaking down the patterns that don't serve you, building back with intention, and becoming better through conscious choice. And that's exactly what we're getting at today. Now let's get into our break phase. So breaking it down, if you're driving, this might be a good time to pull over, maybe pause the video, because what I share from here on out requires your full attention. Your first tactical objective was identifying that reactive moment. Think about that. Where did your leadership default to reaction? Now I want you to write down 3 specific things. The first thing we want to look at is our trigger situation. To define your trigger situation and identify it, ask yourself these questions. What exactly was happening? What time of day was it? Who was involved? And what was at stake? Our reactive response, we want to ask ourselves, what was our immediate reaction? What thoughts went through your head? What did you say or do? And what did you avoid saying or doing? Now to the impact. How did this affect your leadership presence? What message did it send to others? And what opportunity did you miss? Now that we've asked ourselves these questions, I want you to circle your trigger. Now that you've circled your trigger, I want you to think, was this time pressure pushing me to rush? Was this uncertainty making me hesitate? Was this a fear of failure that was holding me back? Or were there some external pressure clouding my judgment? Or was it something else entirely? This is our breaking point. And this is where the transformation truly, truly begins. And here's why it matters. Every reactive pattern you identify is a potential breakthrough waiting to happen. On to the build phase. Moving to our second tactical objective, identifying the intentional action. Look at that reactive moment that you just wrote down. Now we're going to build something better. On a fresh line, I want you to write what clear, decisive decision would have looked like in that exact same situation. Now ask yourself, for our clarity check, what's the real mission in this moment? What matters most right now? And what would confidence choose? For our decision point, what's the clear, decisive action? What's the bold move you know you should make? And what's your best leadership look like? To our execution standard, how exactly would you communicate this? What specific actions would you take? And what standards would you uphold? Remember, this isn't about what you should have done. It's about where you're choosing to become. This is our building block for intentional leadership. On to the better phase, the last part of our B3 framework. Our final tactical objective was executing one intentional decision tomorrow during our most challenging time. This is where our theory meets our reality. So I want you to go ahead and identify your challenge point. What's tomorrow's most likely pressure point? When will your leadership be tested? And where might your default reaction become? The reason this is important is we can start to rehearse and our brain experience that situation before we ever actually get to it. And that prepares us to script our response. So, what's our intentional first move? Rehearse it now. What standards will you maintain? And then finally, how are we going to show up? Now that we've scripted our response, we can rehearse our triggers that keep us successful. What's the time that this is most likely to happen? Is there a reminder that you can set? And how will you prepare? That continuous future rehearsal rather than living in the emotions of our past. This is your chance to prove that leadership is a choice, not a reaction. And this is where better begins. All right, now let's debrief. Let's check in on our tactical objectives. Breaking it down, did you identify a specific reactive moment? If you haven't, pause the video and knock that out right now. Is the trigger clearly circled? Can we identify what caused us to make the decision or the reaction that we made? And then are all three components documented? Now for us to build it back. Is your intentional alternative clearly defined? Have you addressed clarity, decision, and execution? And does your response align with your leadership identity? And to make it better, is tomorrow's challenge point specific and time bound? Have we rehearsed that situation enough to prepare? The brain will actually think we have already experienced that situation if we start to go ahead and rehearse what it might look like. Is our intentional response scripted? And are our triggers for success in place? If you're missing any of these elements, please make sure you go back and complete them. They're the foundation for what's to come. So for our next 24 hours broken down, tomorrow morning, I need to review your challenge point, rehearse your intentional response, and make sure you have set your triggers for success. When the moment happens, recognize the triggers that you set, consciously choose your intentional decision over a reaction, and then execute it with clarity. At the end of the day, I need you to debrief yourself. Document that execution, measure the impact, and prepare and make adjustments for tomorrow. Remember, one intentional decision can change everything. But here's what's really powerful. It's just the beginning. So next week, we're going to go deeper into self-leadership with Build It Back Better from decision to identity. We'll take what we've learned this week about intentional decisions and transform it into a leadership identity that holds strong under pressure. We'll learn how to turn that intentional decision into a pattern of excellence. We'll talk about the 3 pillars of sustainable self-leadership and the tested system for maintaining clarity when everything else breaks down. But first, I need you to focus on this week's mission, and I need you to execute it. Break it down, build it back better. This is EJ Wood signing off. See you next week.